afternoon and welcome to Ask the Expert, Transforming Medicine with Biopharmaceutical Sciences. I'm Millie Sullivan. I'm the Alvin B and Julie O. Stiles Professor and Associate Chair of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering here at University of Delaware, and it's really a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon and to facilitate our conversation with today's expert. So before I introduce our guest, I just want to remind you that you are certainly encouraged to submit any questions you might have during the event. You can do that simply by typing them into the Q&A box. We'll be sure to get to as many of those questions as we can. And with that, it's really my great pleasure to introduce today's guest, Gadde. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Shay, and then we'll dive into our conversation. So Shay is a proud UD graduate alumnus from the class of 2006. He's currently the CEO at BioTek reMEDys, a company focused on treating rare diseases. And as a professional, he's really been at the forefront of several business endeavors, and he's continued to be a real innovator in the healthcare industry throughout his entire career. He's got a number of affiliations I wanted to highlight that include the American Managed Care Pharmacy, the American Pharmaceutical Association, Delaware Pharmacists Society, and the National Home Infusion Association, among others, and we'll be talking more about some of his activities in just a few minutes. I also wanted to talk a little bit about his other work, and in particular, in addition to being on UD's Board of Trustees and serving on the university's Biopharmaceutical Innovation Advisory Board, Shay also is on the board of the Sanford School in Wilmington, chairman of the board at Innovation Precision Health, and he's on the board at Pathogen X. So incredible civic engagement in a number of different locations and institutions. Originally, Shay is from Hyderabad, India. He earned his undergraduate degree in pharmacy from Bangalore University. He did graduate work in pharmaceutical industrial manufacturing at Long Island University. And closer to home, he holds then a Master of Business Administration from University of Delaware. So Shay, thank you so much for being with us here today, and welcome. I thought I would kick things off just with a sort of a common question. I know you've been involved really in leadership and management in the pharma and biopharmaceutical industry, sort of by my watch for over 20 years. And I wondered if you could tell us really about your various roles in the industry and really what brought you to some of your key focus areas, things like biopharma supply chain management and startup ventures, among other things.
Yeah, thank you, Millie. Thank you for having me on this great series, and I'm honored. And it's incredible to be part of this elite group of intellects and entrepreneurs and the academic folks. When you mentioned about my interests and my career and history, I love adapting to new roles. I get bored with the status quo, so I constantly try to innovate myself and learn new things and try to be ahead of the curve and the game. I love fostering entrepreneurship, helping folks to bring their product to the markets and promoting innovations. So my expertise, being a pharmacist, clinical pharmacy is like, ingrained in my DNA. But also when you're a clinician and wants to help folks and start companies, we incorporate compassion into it. And when you have that compassion for the stakeholders, that drives you to even do more for folks and more for the industry and more for the humanity. So over the period, the entire supply chain from being a clinician in the pharmacy, I would dispense medication to the patients and I would enjoy that. From there, went on to innovate ourselves into infusion world, and even we're in the drug development world as well. We have a molecule in the pipeline that that helps to fight cancer using your immune system, and then just not happy with the way I do things. So we got into innovating even further more into data analytics, using artificial intelligence, machine learning, to work on improving the patient-reported outcomes and digitalizing it. There's a lot of need. The bottom line is when I say need in a certain area, it drives me to fulfill that need for any stakeholders. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking as you were talking about, some of and you were talking about fulfilling needs, and I was thinking about your company and how I wonder if you can tell us then more about how you have selected the focus areas, the diseases, and the sort of application arenas that you're really helping to support. I know there's a number of those, so maybe you could outline what disease areas in particular you're supporting, and how are those decisions made as to what to focus on.
No, it's a great question, because I'm often asked, like, why rare diseases, right? Like, what's the purpose of rare diseases? Um, by definition, probably 5 in 10,000 people, if they have that condition, could be a rare disease, or probably for our population, entire 200,000 people could, if they have it, could be considered as a rare disease. What does that mean? You asked the question, like, what are the rare diseases? It's like multiple sclerosis, some of them oncology, rheumatoid arthritis, a lot of autoimmune conditions. What is the significance? Well, why do we need to treat those diseases? Why is it so important? It's like helping or having attention to the underprivileged or underserved, right? You ask a question to a mother, like, out of all your children, who's your favorite child? Mom's love is for all, or parents' love is for all children. But if there's a child that needs a special attention, you tend to help a lot and focus more of your time and attention into that. Similarly, for me, rare diseases, these conditions are so important, and if they're neglected, there's not much help. So you need to respond to them at a faster rate. And when you talk about these rare diseases, often treating a rare disease, whether it's on clinical side or research side or on the treatment side, that leads to a lot of other therapies too. It becomes an invention, like monoclonal antibodies. We're just a part of a small sector at some point. Now it's the most growing sector in that world. For instance, people are talking about lately mRNA treatments, like you could treat oncology with it, or even COVID. We talked about monoclonal antibodies. Folks are talking about for COVID treatments as well. So when we focus on those treatments, it really helps us to focus on big picture, and that will be an onset of a lot more innovations to that. So it's a pretty meaningful world for me, the rare disease world.
Yep. It struck me that the approaches that, as you've talked about, the pace of need in terms of treatments for rare diseases and the innovations you've had to apply maybe especially set you and your company well up to sort of move fast now that the industry is changing. And so I wondered if you could comment, broadly, but also in any specific context you wish, about how have you seen this industry, the biopharmaceutical industry, evolve, especially in this fast-paced last 5 to 10 years, and what are the ways that the delivery of medicine is changing to meet those needs?
Yeah, it's amazing, and I've seen it in my lifetime. All the changes. It used to be pills, and then anything post pills would be you have to go to a hospital or to the physician's office. So the advances are incredible. The quality of life has improved so much in patients' lives. Some of the folks would be homebound or hospital bound. Now they have the freedom to travel and get those treatments in different areas. For instance, the infusion treatments that we do for multiple sclerosis, we could do it at home, we could do it at physician's office, we could do it at a hospital. So the options and the quality of life is big. And the landscape changes too, Millie, because some of these treatments are so difficult to access. So the landscape is changing. And the decision makers of these treatments, we go through, the companies go through a lot of effort to bring the product to the market, but then there are a lot of barriers of entry to those products too. A doctor writes a patient a prescription. Doesn't mean the patient's going to get it because someone has to pay for that. Even if they pay for it, you have the issues of deductibles, co-pays that are very expensive and they need to afford for that. So when you come up with models that fulfill all those needs and the patient gets it and you improve the quality of life, it's very fulfilling. So I'm really excited with all these developments and the patient has access that they've never had that before.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I saw too, in terms of the sort of most recent things that you've been working on was an approach to really sort of enable infusion of some of the monoclonal antibodies we've been seeing for COVID. Can you tell us more about that effort and what it involves?
Yeah, that's an incredible option too. Basically, the antibodies. I don't want to go too generic. Are if you're given a vaccine, body produces these antibodies, and it's prepared. Should a larger virus comes in, you already have the antibodies in the system. So our specialty is in infusion of blood derivatives, rare diseases such as hemophilia, immunoglobulins. We treat a lot, and it seems like a natural fit because the manufacturers that we work with, they're in a great position to produce these antibodies. They have the manufacturing facilities. They collect the blood from the folks that have gotten COVID. And when someone beats COVID, like they have antibodies in the system, you take that pool of blood and you fractionate it and separate those monoclonal antibodies. If you remember last year, March, April, May, the option for treatments were hospitals. It's just not hospitals. They were being put into ICUs, on ventilators mostly. Now, if someone gets COVID, there's so many treatment options. They can come to our infusion suites within the hospitals and they can get these treatments and you would see immediate results and results as good as the hospital treatments. So the patients can feel better, that they don't feel confined to an ICU. They get those same treatments in the suites and they get better quickly. It has helped a lot in this treatment of COVIDs with these monoclonal antibodies. So we're extremely happy and we've got like a great response and the patients are grateful for that.
That's fantastic. I wonder, it struck me too while you were commenting just now, if you could help me understand and help our audience understand how some of those innovations that you've worked on in access to, for example, monoclonal antibodies, what types of innovations are needed for the world over to have access? How would you see, what do you think is needed in that space next in order to allow this type of therapy to be more widely available?
Yeah, it's that's the part, right? It's multifold. We have so many intellects in our country that can come up with these treatments. Then you need to have access. You need to bring about those treatments for the access to the patients. And then to be able to treat the world, you need the production capacity. So just like how in business it became a global community, in the medicine, we need to look at a broader scope, not just look at our area, our state, our country. We need to look at broader scope and share those technologies. And that would help because, we would think about like getting COVID vaccinated. Okay, so in our state, in our country, we get vaccinated. What does that mean? What if you have the people traveling back and forth? What if there are other folks, other part of the world that are suffering? So sharing this knowledge, working together as a community, the research, manufacturing, access, supply chain logistics would really be a great solution if we can work together to beat this pandemic, because no one has seen such thing in our lifetime. And this is the time where we need to come together as a world. One world way of doing things would be a way to beat this pandemic.
Yeah, that's I think an excellent points, and it makes me think then, in terms of looking forward into the future, thinking about, broadly speaking, what do you see as, the most exciting directions that the biopharmaceutical industry is taking now, in various capacities, certainly including what we were just talking about?
Oh, absolutely. Like there are so many therapies that are happening in terms of the volume. The monoclonal antibodies have taken a big leap in that direction in different treatments. But then come like the onset of gene therapies, CRISPR technologies. There's so many technologies, and those advances are. I'm very excited about those opportunities, and that would lead to a different level. So I'm really grateful for the advances that we've had in this therapies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I wanted to sort of shift a little bit gears. There's a couple other things I really wanted to ask you about. One is the incredible civic engagement I know you've been involved in. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what has been involved. I know there have been a number of different charities, foundations, et cetera, that you play a big role in. What has motivated you, and what is involved in your work with some of these activities?
It's a good question. I learn a lot from looking at folks. When I talk to people, I observe. Who I am is a reflection of the community and the world. And you folks, the community, when I look at it, things that you do, there are a lot of good in this community. We do see a little bit of, here and there instances, but by large, it's a fair, wonderful community, and that inspires to go above and beyond my own needs or my own family needs to reach out and help out. And the idea is to do those things unconditional, that we don't need anything in return, like paid forward kind of a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, that's wonderful. And in particular, I know you have started the Gadde Foundation. What is involved? Can you tell us a little bit?
It's a small foundation with Delaware Community Foundation. I don't feel I've done much with it, but we need to do a lot more where we can serve the underprivileged, either in early education or the senior communities. We need to focus on. So I try to get a lot of our friends involved, but I need to do a lot more than what I have done.
Well, I think your contributions have been incredible. So I was excited to see, the range of ways you've made a difference. I wanted to shift closer to home too. I know you've been taking an important role on UD's Biopharmaceutical Innovation Board, and I wanted to sort of talk with you then about the University of Delaware, and really how you see UD's position for success and innovation. What do we have that can help us be leaders in this area, and those sorts of things?
Oh yeah. Speaking of our UD and our community in the state as well, our president always talks about the Delaware way. And it's that way that we need to experience it. what does that Delaware way means, or the UD way means? We have so many subject matter experts like yourself and the folks on the board who've donated a lot, contributed to the building. If I'm allowed to say, the names AP Bio stands for Ammon Pinizzato, named after Carol Ammon and Marie Pinizzato. They're so giving, they're so intellect, they're wonderful people, and they continue to give back to the community. What does their contribution mean to industry or innovation? They've been innovators themselves, and they've done really well, and they continue to contribute. But with their presence, Delaware has a lot of subject matter experts that you have access to, that you can reach, you can share your knowledge. And if you have those issues, like, figure out those issues, the location, the speed, and access to the decision makers, that makes it so unique. And you don't get that in other major cities. And I think that's what makes our community so successful. And our UD community, our state, and our location, it's the people and their access and the speed, how they're accessible, that folks can come in and approach anyone without any layers. For me, that's how I've always been. And I felt that that's our secret sauce, the Delaware way.
Yeah, well, I think it's a wonderful statement on the sense of community that exists at Delaware, and also, harkens back to the continued engagement of, alumni or community, and that sort of thing as we, even after graduation and beyond, and those types of things. So, it's been really just a pleasure talking with you. I appreciate all of the insights and expertise that you've shared with us over the past number of minutes, and I want to thank you for joining me and joining us today. It's been great to talk.
Thank you, Millie.
Thank you so much.
Bye.